Welcome in episode number 44 of the St0ner Sports Radio podcast. I am alone today as Zach is preparing for our live at Lindsay Street broadcast happening tomorrow morning for Game 1 between the Oklahoma Sooners and the Arkansas State Red Wolves. We will be going over Week 0. We'll give you the review of everything you missed if you were not tuned and glued to your TV over on Saturday and Thursday nights. And then we'll hit up Week 1. We'll give you the matchups that we like, and by we I mean me, and then we'll go over who is drinking that Kool-Aid here before Week 1 kicks off. I've already got a nominee that's fresh and ready to go, and we'll visit the St0ner Sportsbook, give you the recap and who hit their parlay over the weekend. If you're not following on Twitter, I'll give you the deets. And this is once again the St0ner Sports Radio broadcast. Welcome in, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good Friday evening. If you are joining us late this evening, I know this video won't be posted until Saturday afternoon, so I'm kind of jumping the gun here with everything. I'm not used to being alone, so this is kind of new for me, so I hope you guys can bear with me here for a little 45 minutes to an hour talk of me behind this microphone. Hope I'm not too annoying for all of you listening back at home. So let's get it started, right? I mean, Week 0, right? It's in the books. It's pretty much done. Week 1 is upon us. Starting tomorrow, September 2nd, we will be hot and ready to go. Let's go ahead and take a gander here at some of these games that we've been talking about for the last episode and a half or so. We already talked about San Jose, USC, Navy, and Notre Dame, as both of those teams got it done Friday. Sorry, not Friday, excuse me. Over last Saturday, August 26th, which was around the last time that you heard from us. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and recap that for you. San Jose State loses to USC 56-28. This game was a lot closer than the final score kind of dictates. Once again, USC's defense kind of looked on the ropes at times. It was 21-14 at halftime, and then a 21-point third quarter that included the Zachariah Branch kick return for a touchdown. Kind of sealed this thing, folks. It kind of it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, per se, for the Spartans of San Jose State, but a valiant effort nonetheless, and the Spartans cover. So, I mean, that's all you need to know about that. So good news there. As far as Notre Dame and Navy goes, this game was a blowout. 42-3. Sam Hartman looked fantastic, threw for 251 yards and 4 touchdowns for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And, just nobody on offense for Navy could get anything going. Lavatai couldn't get his offense going, and they missed a couple key opportunities early that would have kept them somewhat relevant in this game for maybe even a moment's notice, but just, couldn't get the job done in the end. But those were kind of the games that kind of initiated the college football season. Other games that went on as well. Jacksonville State got the win over UTEP 17-14 in a nail-biter. UMass got the upset win over New Mexico State 41-30. And San Diego State outlasted Ohio 20-13. And Louisiana Tech got the win over Florida International 22-17. And Vanderbilt got their first win of the season for the second year in a row. They beat Hawaii by 35-28. Last year they won by a bigger margin, but bottom line is Vanderbilt won both of their games to start the season, and both of them were against Hawaii this year and last year. That's really the notes to take away from that. But it wasn't done, right? It wasn't done just yet. Thursday night, which is last night from me recording this, Utah and Florida. That game, definitely an interesting one for sure. No Cam Rising due to injury. So it was the young gun for Utah, Barnes, coming in, and then Nate Johnson as well, getting some run as well for the Utes. Both backup quarterbacks got some action on Thursday night, and they really made Florida look bad. Final score 24-11. Utah covers They were -4.5. That line did move, but we took it at -7 before we knew that that before we knew what we were getting ourselves into as far as Cam Rising not playing. We had no idea that was going to happen when we made our pick, so that kind of came in and we thought it might bite us in the butt, but it did not. Look, I mean, this game kind of came down to discipline, right? Florida just, tons of middle mistakes on crucial downs. You had two players wearing number 3 on a play that gave Utah a first down. Napier just didn't look in control of this team at all. And I think that's something you have to kind of look at as a factor here when it comes to the fact that they lost this football game. Undisciplined. Graham Mertz looked terrible. When you're a bad quarterback at Wisconsin, I don't know what they thought bringing him to Florida would do. We kind of talked about maybe him having better athletes around it would make him a better looking quarterback than he could have ever looked for the Badgers, but it just wasn't the case, right? It just wasn't. It wasn't meant to be. He just looked bad. He's just a mid quarterback, and the Gators really didn't give him anything to work with as far as the run game is concerned. The offensive line looked bad. Utah got to him relentlessly. I think he got sacked 4 or 5 times last night. It was just bad overall, all the way around for the Gators. And, after one quarter and it was 7-3, you're thinking, okay, maybe Florida's got some momentum here heading into the second quarter. Then, boom, middle mistake. And then you get outscored 10-0 in the second, 7-0 in the third. And then, you give up 8 points in the fourth and you don't score if you're Utah, but it didn't really matter. It was 24-3 heading into the fourth quarter, and just a piss poor showing for Florida. And we talked about Florida before this season started. We thought maybe they would make a bowl game if they were lucky. Their schedule's just really tough, and if you play like they played last night, you're not going to win a lot of football games. I'll just be frank with you. I mean, Mertz did throw for 329 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. It sounds a lot better than it looked. I'm looking at the wrong one. He threw 333 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. I don't know why I said 3 touchdowns. I almost scored 11 points. I was looking at the Wake Forest quarterback underneath him, Griffiths, who looked fantastic against Elon. Wake Forest won that game 37-17. But no, Mertz, 333 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Very underwhelming. The yards don't really speak to the way that he looked to the eye. It was just bad. So lots of Florida fans distraught over that loss. They thought maybe coming in they would have a chance, but alas, they did not. And that game was over, pretty much at the end of the third quarter when it was 24-3. I don't think anybody was really paying attention to that game because there was another game going on that people were paying attention to. I'm going to talk extensively about this one. It was Minnesota and Nebraska. This game, look, it wasn't an offensive shootout. It was Big Ten football to a T, 3-0 at halftime in favor of Minnesota. And then Nebraska went up 7-3 in the third quarter. Final score here, 13-10. Minnesota gets the win on a game-winning 47-yard field goal for the Gophers. But how did you get to this point, right? That's kind of what, people ask, how did Nebraska once again lose a one-possession game, even though they've got a new head coach in Matt Rule, who people thought would come in and fix some of these problems that Scott Frost was having relentlessly over the past few seasons, with Nebraska just not being able to finish the job when a game is in grasp. You see it in the mirror, you're looking at it, you got tunnel vision, you're looking at that W, you only need one good possession, and they just couldn't ever seem to get it done. They thought Matt Rule would be the guy to fix that, but unfortunately for Cornhusker fans, pain again as they lose a close one on the road in Minnesota. So let's talk about this, right? Jeff Sims, 19 carries, 91 yards, led Nebraska rushing the football, which, is never a good sign when your quarterback is your leading rusher, which means your offensive line wasn't really getting any push for your running backs. Gabe Irvin Jr. had 7 carries for 55 yards. Anthony Grant, who was a big part of this offense last year, 9 carries, 27 yards, and a crucial fumble late in the fourth quarter that kind of gave Minnesota a chance. They did go 3 and out after that fumble. It did not really end up culminating in any points for Minnesota, but it was definitely felt as a momentum play Jeff Sims threw the ball decently, 11 of 19, 114 yards, 1 touchdown. But here's the glaring problem here: 3 interceptions. I mean, look. I mean, let's be honest about Jeff Sims, right? Recruited to Georgia Tech as a wishbone quarterback. You transfer over to Nebraska. Casey Thompson leaves. He's now at Florida Atlantic. So, I mean, you had a bunch of shuffling going on here with quarterbacks as far as this game is concerned, in Nebraska as a team, right? I think a lot of people would have questions, right, for most blue blood teams if you bring in a wishbone quarterback to an offense that's, I don't know, not running the wishbone, not running the triple option. It doesn't really beg the oh, he's good at throwing the football. It doesn't really, it doesn't give those vibes. And that definitely was the case. He just did not throw the ball very well. And in the end, it's kind of what cost them the football game, right? I mean, you're talking about a guy who got caught throwing into triple coverage with under a minute to go, with a chance to just do what Minnesota did, which was kick a field goal and get out of there with the win. So let's talk about that, right? So Minnesota, amazing play by their wide receiver, Daniels, dragging a foot, catch of the year nominee. If you haven't seen it, it definitely is something that you need to take a gander at. It was an impressive catch. It was a catch that a lot of Minnesota fans will be clamoring to see more of from this from this wide receiver. I mean, he's got a fantastic sense of body control. I mean, it's uncanny what we saw from him on this catch here. I'll pull it up for you. We'll take a look at this, folks. This is something. Get this over here for you guys. Make this full screen for you. If it'll work with me here. Oh wow, it's gonna cut it off. Hold on. Move it over here. I mean, look at this. I'm gonna slow it down for you here. Look at this, baby. I mean, this is the part right here. This is the touchdown that tied it up here. This is 4th down. This is for the ball game, and he gets a foot down, baby. And I mean, it's not a touchdown in the NFL. Good luck getting drafted. Some comments there, but a great catch nonetheless. And that's what tied it at 10. Technically, obviously needed the extra point, but they knocked that through. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, and we're tied at 10. Nobody's like, okay, this game is over. Nobody's thinking, oh, here comes another, blown opportunity, for the Cornhuskers. There's no way that happens. But here we are again talking about Nebraska losing a close one, and I just don't know what Sims was seeing on this play. It was pretty. I mean, when you look at the replay from his perspective, which and a lot of people didn't see it from this angle that I'm going to show later on here in another segment. But there are 3 maroon jerseys around this receiver. He tries to squeeze it into a window the size of the football, and he just doesn't put enough oomph on it. He lets it hang up there for just a tenth of a second too long, and the safety comes from behind the wide receiver and makes a great interception. And, obviously the game wasn't over then, but you had a couple big runs by the Gophers, and it set them up for a decent-looking field goal, and their kicker had only missed 1 field goal of the night. It was from 54 yards, and he barely missed it, just pushed it wide right. So not a lot of, oh my gosh, he might miss this feeling going into this kick. It was more of, like, he should probably knock this one in because the other one was so close. This one's 8 yards closer, unless this thing gets blocked or, the hold is bad, this thing should be split in the uprights. And sure enough, right down Main Street, right down the middle, back in the net as the clock expires. And a lot of questions for Cornhuskers fans after this. Where does this season go for them? Where do they see quarterback play going? Do you think Sims makes another start here? I think you probably have to have him in there. I don't think they've got many other options behind him that would be warranting of pulling him. I just think it was a bad game and a bad decision by him. I mean, it's rough to see that. But Nebraska's going to do what Nebraska's going to do. And for all those fans that were, saying that, this was going to change and Matt Rule was going to bring change. He said it best. He said it might take a couple years. And if you remember with Baylor, it took a couple years. Remember with Temple, it took a couple years. I mean, it's not something you can instantaneously fix. Now, some of these situations you got to be able to fix. Now, the Anthony Grant fumble hurts. And it was very publicly known that he was having fumble problems in practice. But they thought, look, he's a gamer. He's the guy who want the ball in his hands when the time comes. And sure enough, boom, hat on ball, ball out, and Minnesota gets the football back. And of course, they don't score on that, but it still happened. And I think I think that's something. At least I don't think they scored off of that. Was that the touchdown? I don't want to misspeak here. Let's see here. Blup, 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 blup. Let's see, interception. All right, fumble. Yeah, the fumble did lead to the touchdown. So I'm an idiot. So Anthony Grant fumbles it, and that's what led to the touchdown. But again, the touchdown came on 4th down. So you got to and previously he had caught the ball out of bounds, or Daniels had caught the ball out of, or Jackson, the other wide receiver, had caught the ball out of bounds. But Daniels had a pretty good evening getting by some of the corners for Nebraska and just found himself open. And it might have been passes back to him, to be honest. Again, I want to make sure here. Let me pull up the play-by-play here. I think that on that touchdown drive for Minnesota after the fumble, they went to him a couple times here. Let's see here. 3rd down. It just says pass incomplete. It doesn't say who it was incomplete to. Oh, and it was Daniel Jackson. I'm getting names fucked up right here. Daniel Jackson was the one with the incredible catch. And I think that's who they were throwing it to repeatedly. So yeah, I mean, he had caught the ball out of bounds barely. The play before that, his foot was just off of the turf as he had controlled the football in the back of the end zone. And so for him to drag the foot the next play after that was kind of, incredible. And to be honest, I loved seeing Minnesota be able to overcome that adversity, because it just kind of builds, character as a football program to be able to come up and make those kind of plays. So kudos to Minnesota getting that job done. But definitely that was kind of the game of the evening. Thursday, Missouri beat South Dakota 35-10. That game, again, seemed a lot closer than it was. South Dakota had some chances to really pull that game within 10 a couple times, couldn't get it done. Tulsa beats Arkansas Pine Bluff 42-7. They were down 7-0 after the first quarter, but didn't allow a touchdown after that, which is, how that game should have gone. Trent Dilfer, first-year head coach for UAB, they get the win over North Carolina A&T 35-6. And Arizona State escapes Southern Utah 24-21. So the Southern Utah, the Thunderbirds, giving the Sun Devils a little bit of a in Rashada's first start as freshman quarterback for the Sun Devils. Of course, they play Oklahoma State, I believe, next week. So that should be something to be talked about. The offense for Arizona State did not look too inept. They were up 21-7 at halftime, but got outscored 14-3 in that second half. So lots of stuff to still talk about when it comes to Arizona State and how, they're not going to win a lot of games this year either. I mean, they're just not a great football team. They're going to win some games, but I don't know if they're a bowl team. They just don't look like it to me right now. But still, a lot of time to kind of reel that in and get some more footing. But I think that's good news for Oklahoma State. I think early on I was kind of like, man, this kid can really throw the football. Oklahoma State might be in trouble, but that defense for Arizona State is so bad. I just don't know if they can hang with the Cowboys and what they bring onto the field. Of course, we'll see more of that on Saturday when they play Central Arkansas, which I think they will handle quite well. At least they should. We'll see how that goes Saturday night. That one will not be on TV unless you have ESPN Plus. It'll be shown on the Big 12 ESPN Plus channel. So unless you have that, you're not going to be able to see it, but you'll be able to listen to it on 96.1 FM locally in Oklahoma City and elsewhere with Dave Hunziker and crew. But a lot to unpack as we transition here into games happening on Saturday with Week 1. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Obviously, first game I'm going to talk about is Oklahoma and Arkansas State. Spread on this is OU minus 36. The line has moved a little bit. The over-under is 58 for this game. And, of course, the big question for Sooner fans is, what kind of play are we expecting from the running back core? They've got two guys that look like they're going to be splitting carries with Marcus Major and Tyree Walker. And Walker, an incredible story. But also you've got Javonte Barnes back there still, and you've got Gavin Sawchuk in the wings as well. I think all four of those guys should get touches on Saturday, and if they don't, that's concerning. But I do think they'll all get some touches, and we'll see a bit of all of them. But how that core looks will also depend on how this offensive line looks, and the offensive line looks like one of the strongest parts of this team, which is a good thing. You're going to need a running game to take that pressure off of Dylan Gabriel, and Arkansas State's not a great team. I don't expect them to hang in there very long in this game at all. At least they shouldn't. Obviously, the defense for OU is kind of the other storyline, right? I mean, have they improved from a team that's ranked in those triple digits to a team that can be respectable on the defensive side of the football? Brent Venables is there for that. That's his kind of, his bread and butter is defense. So, you should be able to, get some easy stops, get some turnovers, really impose your will on a team that's just inferior to you when it comes to talent. And Arkansas State knows that going in here. Will they be able to protect the football? Will they be able to move the football? I think that the Red Wolves will be able to move the football decently. I think most of that movement will take place in the first quarter, but they've got to take advantage of that if they want to make Oklahoma sweat it out for even the first 15 minutes of this football game. That's kind of the way I see it. I think that Arkansas State probably hangs in there for the first quarter. They shouldn't, but I think that's kind of the way this is. In a lot of these games with some of these better teams versus some of these not so good teams, we've seen that. We've seen some moments where it's like, man, they're only up 2 scores, and then the final score, you're like, okay, that's acceptable. Games like, for instance, last night we had Elon and Wake Forest, right? That game kind of got a little scary for Wake Forest. It was like 17 to 28 or something like that. I mean, after a pick six, and you were thinking, okay, if Elon can get a couple stops, maybe the offense can get going, and we could see the first real kind of upset of the college football season. And it just didn't end up doing that, and the final score ended up being 37-17, which well below what the expected win spread was for the Demon Deacons, but they get the job done nonetheless. I think that there's a lot that you can say about these lesser teams showing up a little bit more than these big teams give them credit for. Do I think Arkansas State is good enough to pull up the upset tomorrow? Absolutely not. I think OU is just too good. I think Arkansas State's just that bad. Their quarterback completed 46% of his passes last year. He had almost as many interceptions as he had touchdowns, 14 touchdowns to 11 picks. This is not a quarterback that's going to hurt you through the air. If he does, the wide receivers are going to have to be wide open, and it's going to have to be blown coverage, which, I don't think we should see a lot of due to the fact that, like I said, OU's just got better athletes. You should be able to hang with your man. I'm not saying that some of these wide receivers for the Red Wolves can't be savvy and pull off some things here and there. Like I said, they're going to move the football early. A lot of these bad teams move the football early because these guys just, they don't anticipate these teams to be very good, and they kind of lax up, like, oh god, they're playing for real. Like, of course they're playing for real. Like, they know that for the first 15 minutes is probably the best chance they've got to put a field goal or something on the board to make you go, oh, that's pretty much their only thing they've got. Now remember, last season, Kent State and OU, it was 7-3. OU was up by 4 at halftime, and people were like, man, is OU any good? And then obviously the next 2 or 3 games after that, OU, turned back into OU, and at the end of that game, it ended up being just fine as well. I think that when you look at the final score of that, it says it's, 33-3 is not great, but 24 points in the third quarter is kind of the way that it should have been 33-3 at halftime probably. But it was just a slow start. And And I think that, if OU has a start like that against the Red Wolves, it could be a lot more dangerous than it could be against Kent State. Now, of course, that Kent State team went on to play Georgia tough as well. Played Georgia tougher than my Ducks did. That's all I can say about that, and that's disappointing to say. But that Flashes team was not terrible. As far as giving you effort, and a lot of coaches take this for granted, especially at big schools. Effort, right? And you see it with these tiny schools, man. They give it 110% because what have they got to lose? They're there to pick up a check. They're there to make you look good. They know that they're probably going to get their, what kicked in, but they give you all they've got. And I think that the Sooners know that Arkansas State's going to give them their best shot. Arkansas State's going to pull out all the stops. Unlike OU, where you're probably going to see a very vanilla offense, you're going to see a very vanilla defense. I think that they're not really going to show a lot. You're not going to find out a lot. You're going to see probably a lot of run plays, especially if they're getting 5 or 6 yards a pop. I don't think that they're going to really find themselves in a position where they're forced to be, pulling out stuff out of the playbook that they're saving for tougher conference opponents. I don't think you'll see anything in this game that you'll see in the Texas game. Let's put it that way. And you shouldn't. You should be able to take care of business against this Red Wolves team, and I think that that's something that, as an OU fan, if you're watching, you got to look at. So that's one game that to focus on. Another game going on around 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 Central, Portland State and Oregon. This game in Autzen Stadium, again, Oregon, another team that should take care of business. Again, this is an in-state kind of game. So there is kind of some animosity here. A lot of these Portland State kids didn't get looked at by Oregon. And so I think there's some of that, mentality of, well, I'd like to show them what they're missing out on, but I don't think you're going to see that. I think Bo Nix and company are going to roll. I don't think you really have, I don't think you're going to have a lot of hope for Portland State to hang in there. The spread on this is very vast, and I'm looking at it right now. It's a big one, and obviously Oregon is favored in this, as they should be. Where is it? Why is it hiding from me? Where are my Oregon Ducks? You would think they would have it on here. I don't see it on DraftKings. Am I just overlooking it? I'm not seeing it yet. Brother, this would happen to me. I don't see it on here. That's weird. They don't have the Portland State game on here, which is kind of weird. But anyways, I don't think that Oregon's going to be any trouble. I'm looking to see alternate lines here. I don't see them. Okay, whatever. Bottom line is the Ducks are favored by a lot. Let's just put it that way. They don't even have the spread listed on ESPN, so that's how I don't know if you could even bet on this game because it's probably going to be such a big blowout. Same with Oklahoma State and Arkansas, or Central Arkansas. That's a 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern kick. I think Oklahoma State should take care of that. Michigan plays East Carolina at 12 Eastern. They are a 36-point favorite, just like the Sooners are. So we'll see which one of those teams covers. I don't know. East Carolina, probably gonna be decent, but Michigan should be too much for the Pirates to handle. Do they cover the 36? I don't know. Very tempted to take the Eastern Carolina side of this. Virginia playing Tennessee. Tennessee, a 27.5-point favorite over the Cavaliers. Another 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. kickoff. Again, Vols should take care of business. Virginia, not a very good football team. They lost a lot of guys that kept them in any sort of game last season. So I expect Tennessee to kind of roll in this one, but it'll be interesting to see how good their quarterback plays, Milton. I think that'll be the thing to watch for if you're a Volunteers fan. The game that I'm most excited about probably is the Colorado TCU game that kicks off at the same time. It's a big noon kickoff on Fox, 12 Eastern, 11 Central. And it'll be Deion Sanders' coming out party. TCU favored by 20.5, led by former OU quarterback Chandler Morris, as Max Duggan is gone. TCU should win this game. I just think Colorado's going to cover. Travis Hunter's listed as a wide receiver and a corner in this game, so we'll see him play on both sides of the ball for the Buffaloes. And that's what happens when you're one of the best players on the team. I think that you're going to be and you're going to have to try to be an asset on both sides. It's going to be extremely winded. This game is down in Fort Worth. It's going to be hot. Expect the pickle juice to be flowing, because if you're going to be playing both sides of the ball like Travis Hunter is expected to do, now I don't know how much he's going to be playing on both sides of the ball, but I expect that first quarter we'll see him on both sides for the Buffaloes. Can they hang in there? I think they can. We already talked about how me and Zach believe that this is more than a 3-win football team. We think this is a 6 or 7-win football team. We think that people are sleeping on this just because they had 56 players leave and 56 new players come. It's something that we've never seen before. People are like, I don't think it's going to work out. There's no chemistry, yada yada. I don't think it matters. If you have guys that'll buy into what you're trying to do at a program, and I think Dion is one of those guys that I think is very easy to get behind, and he's a very good motivational speaker. I think he's going to have those guys ready to go, and I think TCU is going to be in for a battle. I don't think they can sleep on this team at all. And I think Colorado's going to give them a fight. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I don't think TCU runs away with this thing. I think Colorado keeps this thing close and might even have a chance to win this one down in Fort Worth and be a real staple to the way the Buffaloes can get this season off and running. Now, I might have egg on my face come next week, but we'll see. But I really like that matchup. Another one that's a noon Eastern 11 Central kickoff is number 25 Iowa playing Utah State. Iowa 23.5-point favorite over the Aggies. Again, the Aggies not very good. Bottom tier of the Mountain West Conference. Coach for Iowa, Coach Frentz said they've got a really good punter. And I expect Iowa to make this Aggies team punt a lot. And I think Iowa probably will cover this game. Utah State just not a very good team. Again, a lot of these kick off at noon. Another one at noon Eastern 11 Central, Kentucky and Ball State. Kentucky a 26.5-point favorite. This one a little bit more shaky. Ball State not very good. Again, these are teams that are very much underwhelming, very much shouldn't be in these ball games. Kentucky should take care of business in this one. It'll be interesting to see if Devin Leary can stay healthy and really give the Wildcats what they need offensively at the quarterback position for Mark Stoops and company. But I think you're looking at a Kentucky team that's going to really take care of business here. I think they should cover this one, and the Cardinals will be in for a long, long afternoon. A game that actually could be interesting is Liberty and Bowling Green. 8.5-point spread here for the Liberty Flames. And Bowling Green, a good team when you compare these two. I think this is a good matchup, and I think this is a very accurate line. I think Bowling Green could win this game. Obviously, they're not favored. But they do have a shot here. The Falcons are not some team that you sleep on in the non-conference. Now, I know we're used to seeing Ohio State just bash their brains in for the first game of the season. 9 out of the last 10 years, it seems like they've gone up to Columbus and just gotten their what's just handed to them. But I think this is going to be a very exciting game. Expect like a 35-28 kind of game here. The over-under is 50, so they're thinking it's more like 28-21. I don't know what to really expect from either of these teams, but I think it'll be one of those games that if you go over to CBS Sports Network and you want to watch not a blowout, this is one you might tune into just for the fact it could be a closer football game. Another game on the Big Ten Network at 12 Eastern, 11 Central is Purdue and Fresno State. Purdue a 3.5-point favorite over the Bulldogs, and this one Fresno State could take. We know Purdue's not going to be very good. We know Purdue is going to be the bottom of the Big Ten. The only reason they're probably favored here is because they're in a better conference, so they're going to have a little bit of an advantage talent-wise here. But I think that Fresno State could pull the upset here, and I don't think anybody would be surprised if they roll into West Lafayette, Indiana, into Ross-Ade Stadium and get the job done. But Purdue is looking to try to get their season off to a good start, but I don't know if this is the opponent you want to play to get that one done. Another one, most of these, like I'm saying, are at noon. We're almost to the 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 Central, but these are still 11 Central, 12 Eastern games. Louisiana Tech and SMU. SMU favored by 20.5. This one down in Dallas. The Pony Express trying to get started. They just got invited to the ACC, so congrats to the Mustangs. Pony Express can be heading out to the coastal. Out to the coast, to the ACC, baby, along with Cal and Stanford as well. So all three of those teams got invited out there. So now the only two teams left in the Pac-12 that don't have a home for next season are Oregon State and Washington State. We'll see where they end up going in 2024. I'm sure we'll get news on that as time progresses throughout the season. But I think SMU probably gets this job done. Look, I mean, Louisiana Tech's 1-0. Brockmeyer, the former Boise State quarterback for Louisiana Tech, looked okay. He threw for 333 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. The same stat line as Graham Mertz. So we're not looking at a guy who's gonna really, give you a lot as far as the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs are concerned. I think SMU definitely has a leg up talent-wise here. Is 20.5 too much? I don't think so. I think SMU probably gets it done. I think they probably, again, a lot of these games are going to break open in the third quarter. I think this is probably one of those as well. That third quarter scoring is going to dictate who wins this. I think SMU pulls away heading into the fourth quarter with a decent margin, maybe 14 to 17 points heading into the fourth. So I wouldn't be concerned about SMU not covering this game. I think they would. The last game, or last two games here at 12 Eastern, 11 Central, Northern Illinois, Boston College. Boston College, 8.5-point favorites against the Huskies. Another one of these games where it's two bad teams going at it. Northern Illinois, probably top half of their conference. Of course, Boston College, basement of the ACC. 8.5-point spread here for the Eagles. Again, this is one of those games where the Eagles should pull this one out, but expect this one to be a slugfest and a low-scoring affair here. The over-under 50.5. I would kind of be surprised if we hit that. I would probably take the under here. I think these are two underwhelming offenses, and I think it's going to be a defensive battle, and not because the defense is playing well. I think it's going to be a defensive battle because the offenses are just going to be terrible. I think we're looking at a lot of incomplete passes, looking at a lot of third downs that don't get converted, looking at a lot of penalties for these offenses. I think this is just going to be an ugly game to watch. It's going to give you kind of that Minnesota-Nebraska vibe. I think that's kind of what we're looking at between these two teams. The last game that's going to be at 12 Eastern, 11 Central is Long Island University and Ohio. No line on this. Not going to be able to find this probably anywhere at any reputable site. Ohio should take care of business. Long Island just not going to have the dogs to roll with this, so expect Ohio to get the win there. Moving on to 1 Eastern, 12 Central, Arkansas and Western Carolina. Another game where you're not going to really find the line on this, I don't think, as well. At least it's not listed on ESPN. I don't think you're going to have it on here either. I don't see it on here, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, this should be Arkansas running away with it. I expect them to get the job done and put the Western Carolina Catamounts to bed. So I don't expect them to have a chance, especially on the road in Fayetteville. I give all the credit here to Arkansas to blow out Western Carolina. Air Force and Robert Morris, another 1 Eastern, 12 Central kick. I think Air Force should take care of Robert Morris easily here. Expect the Falcons to roll in their season opener. 2 Eastern, 1 Central, Ole Miss and Mercer. Not going to find this line anywhere. Mercer 1-0 on the year. But that one win for Mercer coming against a far lesser opponent for the Bears. They got their first win against North Alabama 17-7. So I don't expect the Bears to really give Ole Miss much trouble here. Will we get to see Spencer Sanders? I don't know. Jackson Dart is listed as the starter for the Rebels. But if this thing gets out of hand early, we might see Spencer Sanders get some run here. And who knows, they might split snaps in the first half. We'll see what Lane Kiffin and company decide to do, but I think Ole Miss should take care of business there. Jacksonville State plays East Tennessee State. This one on ESPN Plus as well. 2 Eastern, 1 Central. I'm picking the Gamecocks to get the job done. 2-0 start for the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. I'm a little biased here. They slipped by their first win against UTEP by 3 points. I think this one is going to be a far wider margin of victory for the Gamecocks. I think they get the job done at home in their second game of the season. Iowa State and Northern Iowa. Don't know why there's not a line you can find on this one, because I think this one is actually going to be a lot closer than people think. An interstate battle. Northern Iowa always loves to try to give people a hard time. I think Iowa State's going to be in for a slugfest, because Iowa State's going to be in the basement of the Big 12 this year. They're not going to be very good. I don't expect a lot of big things from the Cyclones this year. Brock Purdy is gone. Breece Hall is gone. They don't really have anybody worth a darn that's waiting in the wings. We already know the gambling scandal between them and Iowa, so both of those teams have lost some key players. And I think this one could come to hurt Iowa State. I don't think they lose this ball game, but I think Northern Iowa keeps this thing close, and people will be looking at that scoreboard inside other stadiums and on their TV going, "Oof, that's not looking good for the Cyclones." But I think they get the win. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than Cyclone fans are going to like. Another one that's kicking off at 2 Eastern, 1 Central is Akron and Temple. I think you're looking at Temple as a 9.5-point favorite here, which seems fairly accurate to me. Akron, decent team. They could pull the upset here, but I think the Temple Owls get the job done. I just think they're a little bit more talented than Akron, but expect a close game. I think this could be, a 10-point win for Temple. I think they cover. But I think that it's going to be one of those games again. Ugly football, but the better, more talented team's going to end up pulling it out in the end because I think Akron's going to end up hurting themselves in crucial moments. I think that's just what bad teams do, and I think that's kind of what we're looking at with the Zips this year. All right. Conference battle here to open the week for Ohio State. 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. They take on Indiana. Ohio State a 30-point favorite over the Hoosiers. Now, this one, I don't know about this 30-point spread, okay? Now, I don't believe that Indiana's great. I think they're far from it. But there's a lot of question marks at the quarterback position for Ohio State. I know McCord's going to get the start for them. I think Kyle is going to be okay. Could he get pulled if it doesn't look great? I believe it could happen. But I think this is going to be another game where Indiana always plays Ohio State tough for the first half. And I think Ohio State should pull away in the second half due to just having again, you're going to see me say this a lot. Just too much talent. They got too much. They got them dudes, and Indiana ain't got them dudes. So I think in the end, talent kind of prevails here. Ohio State probably pulls away in the end. I think probably a 17 to 24-point win. I expect Indiana to cover this, but I don't expect them to win at all. 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, Washington and Boise State. Washington a 14-point favorite over the Broncos. I expect Washington to cover this game easily. I think this spread is super low. I like Michael Penix Jr. as a Heisman dark horse. I don't like Washington as a team, being an Oregon Ducks fan, but I think that Boise State here is probably given a little bit too much credit here. I know this game is a road game for Boise State as well. They do not play well away from the Smurf turf. I think you have Washington rolling with this one. I think a 28-point win is something you're going to see out in Husky Stadium in Seattle. Book it right here. All right, another 3:30, 2:30 Central game. Texas playing Rice. Not going to find any lines on this one. I think Texas just creams the Owls. We saw them play USC last year as far as Rice is concerned, and that didn't go very well. I expect this to be just as ugly. I think Quinn Ewers look fantastic. I think Texas will be screaming their back after this one, and I expect the Texas to roll probably by 30-plus against Rice. Another game starting at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, Notre Dame and Tennessee State. Well, we already saw Notre Dame just wax the floor with Navy out in Ireland. I think this is more of the same here. Notre Dame should just roll away with this one. Whatever the spread is, double it. Notre Dame is going to kill Tennessee State tomorrow. Not even worth you checking to see if Notre Dame is struggling, because they're not going to at all, and they are going to roll against the mighty Tigers of Tennessee State. All right, here's another game to think about. And when I say think about, really think about it. Wisconsin and Buffalo. Now, Wisconsin's favored by 28. I think this spread is a little big. I think you're looking at a 21 to 25-point win here. The over-under is 53.5. Buffalo's not great, but I think Wisconsin, I think their offense leaves a lot to be desired. I don't think that their transfer quarterbacks are going to give them enough oomph to get them over the hump. I think when you look at the Badgers and what they bring to the table, I think they're a decent team, but I don't know if you can look at this Wisconsin team and tell me this offense is marginally better than they were last year. I don't know if Nick Evers is going to get any snaps. We know that Tanner Mordecai is going to be the starter for the Badgers. We know how good he was at SMU. He had that 9-touchdown game last season. We know he can throw the football. But will the Badgers lean on that You're going to have to hope so. I mean, Luke Fickell coming in, ex-Cincinnati head coach, probably going to incorporate a lot more run into that offense. And if they can end up throwing the football with ease against this Buffalo Bulls defense, I think that 28-point spread is accurate. But I think that we're going to see a lot of interesting things happening in Madison, and I don't think that that's going to be good for Wisconsin fans. They don't want to hear that, but I think this 28-point spread may be a little bit too much to cover for Wisconsin. I think I would take Buffalo to cover this one plus the 28. Another game, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. Auburn and Massachusetts. Auburn a 35-point favorite over UMass, who got their first win of the season already. No touchdowns for their quarterback, who threw for 192 yards in their first win. I think Auburn probably wins this game. Again, we're talking about an Auburn team that's not going to win a lot of football games. This is going to be one they win. Do they cover the 35? Oh, I mean, UMass really played their first opponent tough. They really pulled a decent upset for them. Now, nobody's going to brag about beating New Mexico State for the majority of the season, but New Mexico State coming into the season, a lot of people were saying their quarterback was going to be a dark horse Heisman candidate. I think that ship has all but sailed after losing to the Minutemen. But I don't think Auburn's going to lose to the Minutemen. I think they get this job done, and I think they do it convincingly. I think Auburn covers this 35-point spread. I think you're looking at probably a 49 to 14 point win here. I would take the over here as well on the 51 and a half. Towson and Maryland, another 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kick. Maryland rolls. Don't even need to talk about that one. Western Kentucky and South Florida. This game will be interesting. Two bad teams going at it. Western Kentucky, a 12-point favorite here over the South Florida Bulls. And I think this is, again, one of those games where you tune in just to see two teams that are going to be kind of in a close game. Western Kentucky should cover this. I think they probably win by 14. If not, they win by 13 and still cover. But expect a close game throughout, and expect South Florida to have a chance to make it a football game late in the third, early in the fourth. But I just don't think that South Florida is going to be able to get it done. Pittsburgh plays Wofford. I think Pitt gets the job done there. That's another 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kick. Cincinnati plays Eastern Kentucky. The Bearcats should win that game fairly easily. That's another 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kick. And then we move on to the 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central Time. Mississippi State, Southeast Louisiana. Pick the Bulldogs and Will Rogers and company to get the first win without, the first official win without Mike Leach on the sidelines. RIP to the King. I think you're looking at a team in Mississippi State that's going to be out to try to prove that, as much as they loved Mike Leach, they can win without him. And I think this is one of those games that is kind of handed to them on a silver platter to try to get them on the right footing. I don't think they're a threat in the SEC at all, but I think that this is going to be a much-needed win for them against a really bad Southeast Louisiana team, so expect the Bulldogs to roll in that one. Cal and North Texas, this game is actually going to be a pretty good one. Cal only a 6-point favorite over North Texas because Cal is going to be bad this year, folks. Unfortunately for you Cal fans, it's going to be a rough year, and North Texas could win this game, and I am picking the Mean Green to win this game and cover the 6 here at home in Denton, Texas. Cal trying to drive out or fly out into the hot sun of Texas. So I think North Texas gets it done. Expect Cal to start 0-1. That's going to be one of those upsets people talk about come Monday. Syracuse plays Colgate up in the JMA Wireless Dome in Syracuse. Expect them to absolutely destroy the Raiders. They're just not very good at football, and I don't think this is going to be very close. Another 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock kick right there. Another one is Bryant and UNLV. Expect the Rebels to get the job done against Bryant. Sorry, Bulldogs. You're not going to get that job done against the Rebels on the road. Oh, boy. Defending national champions, 6 Eastern, 5 Central, Georgia and UT Martin. I don't think you're going to see a lot of questions answered here. I think Georgia rolls over UT Martin. I don't think this game is close at all. And I think that you see exactly what you're going to want to see after winning the national championship in the fashion they did, even though they lost all those guys. I think that you're looking at, again, talent galore and just a stomping of the poor Skyhawks of UT Martin. Another 6 Eastern, 5 Central kick, Charlotte and South Carolina State. No spread here. I would pick Charlotte to get the job done here. This game could be close at halftime, but I don't think it'll be close after that, another 6 Eastern, 5 Central kick, Florida Atlantic and Monmouth. We talked about Casey Thompson getting the start for the Owls. I think they take care of business in Boca Raton, and they dispose of the Monmouth Hawks. The Citadel and Georgia Southern, also a 6 Eastern, 5 Central kick. I would pick Georgia Southern to get the job done against the Citadel. Not much to say about that. Bucknell and James Madison, also a 6 Eastern, 5 Central kick. I'm going to go with James Madison to get the job done. Go Dukes. Marshall and Albany, pick the Mean Green, or sorry, the Thundering Herd, excuse me. The Thundering Herd of Marshall to beat the Great Danes of Albany in just runaway fashion. And I know that Albany started 1-0, and their quarterback threw for 253 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, confidence, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the Thundering Herd get it done. Here's a game that I think is also a game that Nevada probably covers. It's Nevada and USC at 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central on the Pac-12 Network. I expect Nevada to cover the 38, and I think USC wins this game, probably by 35, 28 points. The defense, again, really bad for USC, but I think Nevada's offense is, again, going to give them fits. I think that's probably expected that every team this year gives this defense fits. If they run away with this and it's not even close, I mean, I'll eat crow on Monday, but I think that Nevada keeps this closer than 38. That's all I'm going to say. If it's 37, it's 37, but I don't think that USC covers. Lincoln Riley does not cover a lot of spreads historically, so I would probably pick the Nevada side of this if you're looking to try to make some money. Florida International and Maine. I think Florida International rebounds after their first loss of the season and gets the win against the Maine Black Bears at home in Ricardo Silva Stadium at 6:30, 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. Expect the Panthers to get back on track. Kansas State and Southeast Missouri State pick the Wildcats to roll over the Red Hawks of Southeast Missouri State. That game at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Texas A&M and New Mexico. Texas A&M a 38-point favorite against the Lobos. I think that, 38's a lot of points to be given to the Aggies here. Lobos, not a good team, but I think that 38 might be a bit much. I think I might roll with New Mexico plus the 38 here. I know it's at Kyle Field on the road, and New Mexico's not a great team, but remember, a lot of these coaches are getting used to pulling their starters early in the fourth when they're up by 28 or more, and I think that, Texas A&M could win this by 28 or 35, but 38 or more seems to be just too much. I think the Lobos keep it respectable, and by respectable, I mean less than 38 points. UL Monroe and Army, 7 Eastern, 6 Central kick. Army an 8.5-point favorite over the Warhawks. This one is a home game for UL Monroe. This game's going to be another one of those. It's only going to be on the NFL Network, which is interesting. I didn't expect to see that. But this is going to be one of those again. Two bad teams going at it. Going to be a close game. Army favored in this one on the road. UL Monroe could win this. They are the home team. You don't really schedule a lot of games at home that you're going to want to lose in front of your home crowd when it comes to non-conference games. And I think that the Warhawks could pull this win off, but it's going to be a close one. And Army is favored, like I said. Over-under here is 47. I think that's probably accurate. Looking at a low-scoring affair here, maybe 24-21 type stuff going on here. But I expect this one to be a close one and one that you're going to tune into just for that fact. Vanderbilt and Alabama A&M. Look for the Commodores to start their season off 2-0. I think they get rid of the Bulldogs of Alabama A&M easily. That's another 7 Eastern, 6 Central kick. This one is also a 7 Eastern, 6 p.m. Central kick. Colorado State and Washington State. The Cougars favored by 10.5 over the Rams. And this one's going to be another one. It's in Fort Collins. Decent travel for Washington State, and they better get used to playing Colorado State because I think they're headed to the Mountain West, so this is probably a future conference matchup here, and I expect this to be a slugfest. Washington State's not supposed to be very good. Colorado State's supposed to be kind of in the upper half of the Mountain West Conference, which doesn't mean a lot because the Mountain West has probably 2 teams at the top that are decent, but I think that this is probably an accurate spread. Washington State probably wins this one, but I think Colorado State makes them sweat it out. Another 7 Eastern, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time kick. Baylor and Texas State. Baylor favored by 27.5 over the Bobcats of Texas State. Texas State usually plays these Big 12 teams pretty tough. for a majority of the game, and then at the end they just kind of let it run away. I think Baylor covers the 27.5. I think they win this one by 28 or more. But expect this one to be exciting for the first quarter and a half. By halftime, Baylor should be up by at least 21, I think, is a pretty acceptable margin there for the Bears, because they're not going to be world killers this season, but I think that they're going to make it look easy against the Bobcats. 7 Eastern, 6 Central, Houston and UTSA. UTSA, a 2-point favorite over the Cougars on the road. Shocking line there. I'm taking the Cougars here. I like them. I think that, as a new member of the Big 12, you got to kind of give them credit here. UTSA, not a bad team. They didn't lose a lot of players last year. Remember, they had a pretty decent season last year. It wasn't terrible. So, I think that you're looking at a Houston team that's going to get a little bit of a fight from the Roadrunners. And I think the 2-point spread is very generous to UTSA, considering I believe Houston just has more talent. And being the home team, I think if that crowd gets behind them, I think that the Roadrunners could be in trouble. I'm picking the Cougars to win this one, plus the points. Memphis and Bethune-Cookman, another 7 Eastern, 6 Central kickoff. I expect the Tigers to roll over the Wildcats of Bethune-Cookman. Shouldn't even have to tune into that at all. Same with Southern Miss and Alcorn State. I think the Golden Eagles get it done over the Braves. That's a 7 Eastern, 6 o'clock Central kick as well. Troy and Stephen F. Austin, another 7 Eastern, 6 o'clock p.m. kick. I think Troy takes care of the Lumberjacks. Middle Tennessee playing Alabama at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on the SEC network. Alabama, a 39-point favorite over Middle Tennessee. Accurate. I think Alabama runs away with this one. I think you get to see Alabama's offense really get in sync with each other, and I think that Milroe gets his time to shine and look like a quarterback that's going to give Alabama a real shot at getting back in the college football playoff. I think they roll over, take the over 39. Alabama beats Middle Tennessee like 56-3. A game that I'm going to be interested in watching is number 7 Penn State playing West Virginia at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Penn State, a 20.5-point favorite. I think West Virginia is going to keep this one probably around that range. I think Penn State probably wins this one by 21, but I think it'll be a 14-point game heading into the fourth quarter. I think that Penn State kind of ends up, trading scores back and forth in the fourth, and by that I mean maybe scoring twice and West Virginia scores twice in the fourth. But I think Penn State gets the job done by 21. I pick the Nittany Lions to cover that one. South Carolina and North Carolina at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Spencer Rattler taking on Drake May in Charlotte, North Carolina at Bank of America Stadium, where the Panthers of Carolina play football. UNC a 2.5-point favorite here. I think it's Drake May's time to shine. I think North Carolina wins this one by double digits. I don't think Rattler and company will be able to keep it close. And I think that Drake May starts his season off with his foot firmly in that New York Heisman conversation heading into week 2. Illinois and Toledo, another 7:30, 6:30 Central kick. Illinois, a 9-point favorite over the Rockets. Again, 2 bad teams going at it. This one's going to be one of those where heading into the final frame, you're going to be like, hey, Illinois could lose this game, but I don't think they are. I think they get the job done by probably 14 and send the Rockets back to Toledo with an L. And here's my upset pick of the week. I'm picking the Wyoming Cowboys at home in Laramie to beat Texas Tech, who's a 14-point favorite. This one at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. 14-point favorite, like I said. I think Wyoming gets the job done. I think they win this football game, and I think Texas Tech, the hype is dead after week 1. So mark it down. Wyoming beats the Red Raiders. Tulane, the number 24 ranked team in the country, playing South Alabama, only a 6.5-point favorite over the Jaguars, but I think Tulane gets the job done. I think they just have a little bit more talent than South Alabama, but South Alabama, a tough team. I think this one's going to be a nail-biter for the first 3.5 quarters. I think Tulane pulls down the end. I think they win by 10, probably. This one is at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on ESPNU. Again, Tulane, the home team here. I think that has a big effect on South Alabama, who's not having to travel very far. But I think Tulane gets the victory, and I think they cover as well. Virginia Tech and Old Dominion. This one on the ACC network at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Virginia Tech a 16-point favorite. We know how they've just been kind of a roller coaster. They're at home at Lane Stadium. They've lost a couple to bad teams before, Old Dominion being one of them. Can they do it again? I'm going to go ahead and say no, not this time for the Monarchs. Virginia Tech gets it done by 21 plus, and they end up rolling over the Monarchs at home in Lane Stadium. Well, we got just a couple more to go through here. UTEP playing Incarnate Word. I think the Miners get their first win over the Cardinals of Incarnate Word. That one at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Arizona and Northern Arizona pick the Wildcats to go away and win that one. BYU and Sam Houston State. BYU a 19.5-point favorite over the Bearcats. I think that BYU gets this job done. That's a 10:15 Eastern, 9:15 Central on FS1 late night kick from Provo. I think BYU and the Royal jerseys get it done by 21 plus, and Sam Houston State goes back to Houston with their tail tucked in between their legs. UCLA and Coastal Carolina. UCLA a 15.5-point favorite over the Chanticleers. That one a 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central late kick on ESPN. I think UCLA wins this one. Coastal Carolina is really going to give them a fight, though. And I think that Grayson McCall is going to lead these Chanticleers into a good first half. I think they're going to be in this game for a majority of it. I think that late UCLA pulls away. Again, I think third quarters in college football are huge. It's where a majority of the separation usually happens between these good and bad teams. And I think this is kind of what you're looking at here. I think the Bruins end up pulling away in the third and get the job done by 21 plus at home. And the last game they have listed here is San Diego State and Idaho State. I would pick the Aztecs here. Same kick time, 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. I think San Diego State gets the job done over the Bengals of Idaho State. So that kind of wraps up the Week 1 preview. And let's head on to one of my favorite segments. Who is drinking the Kool-Aid? And I'll tell you who's drinking the Kool-Aid. It is going to be someone you don't expect. Let's get it going.
You want some Kool-Aid?
Man, you know I want some Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Show the love, bro. Drink the Kool-Aid. It ain't the end, baby. It's a new day. Future's so bright, I bought some new shades. So stack bottoms up. Drink the Kool-Aid.
There you have it. Drink that Kool-Aid. And here's who I have drinking the Kool-Aid. That's right. It is going to be the Cornhuskers of Nebraska, as I take a look here at I'm looking. There we go. Oh, it's because I have it zoomed in. Let's zoom this back out. Hold on. This is the play we're talking about. Look, once again, take a look at Jeff Sims here. Triple coverage, throws the pick with 56 seconds to go. Who's drinking the Kool-Aid? It's the Nebraska fans who think that Matt Rule is the answer to getting them over the hump. It does not end up being so, and here is the evidence right here as the third pick of the evening for Jeff Sims is intercepted and brought into the Nebraska side of the 50 to set up for the game-winning field goal from 47 yards for the Gophers, and that's who's drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'll tell you right now, while they're drinking it, they thought that he was going to be able to change these things from happening, and unfortunately for them, unable to do so. And you see the evidence right in front of your eyes as Nebraska ends up losing that game again, 13-10. We talked extensively about it, but that is the game, and that's who's drinking the Kool-Aid this week on the St0ner Sports Radio podcast. So let's step into the sportsbook. Right, we got news from the sportsbook, ladies and gentlemen. We got news coming through. We got news coming through the wire. We got big time stuff happening. And I'll go ahead and I'll just start by saying this. If you're using me, and if you tailed this weekend with my picks, I'm telling you right now, you are in some good company. Cause, and I'll give it to you straight, That is beautiful right there, folks. That is a beautiful image. That is a beautiful image. As you take a look at Zach Huffman and I's picks, I went 4-0, so I've got 13-28 in the bank for this week. We picked Notre Dame minus the 20.5. They get the job done. Picked San Jose State plus the 31.5. That got the job done. Utah minus 7 and Nebraska plus the 7.5. Of course, Zach took the other side of that Navy Notre Dame game, and that ended up biting him in the keister as Notre Dame ended up trouncing the midshipmen 42-3. So didn't even have a chance there. But 4-0 start for me. Zach already gave me his picks. I'm going to give them to you right now. That way, if you want to tail him, you can follow him. A good 3-1 start for him as well. If you're using him, you're still making money. Unless you parlayed it, then you got bit in the butt. But if you parlayed with me, you're rolling in it, folks. So here are his picks for this week. His first one is Colorado plus the 20.5 against the Horned Frogs. I like it. That's his first pick. Second pick is Ohio State minus the 30.5 against the Indiana Hoosiers. He thinks that the Hoosiers don't have a chance and thinks Ohio State is going to roll. He has Rice plus 35 against the Texas Longhorns. I think that's a risky pick. And then he agrees with me as well with this Houston pick. I don't know where he got this line for Houston. He's got it at Houston plus 1.5. Let me see where it's at. Yeah, it is at 1.5 over UTSA, and I agree. I think that's a good pick as well. His locks of the week are OU minus the 36 against Arkansas State and Tennessee minus 28. And they are, of course, they are playing their game against Virginia at 12 Eastern, 11 o'clock. That'll be going on the same time as the OU game. Let's see if that line has moved at all. I don't think it has. It is still minus 28 for the Volunteers, so he is picking them to cover that as well. Those are his locks of the week. And here are the games I am picking. I'm also going with Colorado plus the 20.5 against TCU. I'm going to go with Houston plus the 1.5 against UTSA as well. I've got some different picks than him as well. I think I'm picking North Texas plus the 6.5 against Cal, and I am picking Nevada plus 38 against USC for my locks of the week. Here they come at you, big and fast. I'm picking North Carolina minus the 2.5 against South Carolina, and I'm picking Wyoming plus the 14 against Texas Tech as my locks of the week for you this week. And that's going to do it here for episode number 44 of the St0ner Sports Radio Podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Zach will be with me next week, and make sure you tune in tomorrow. We will be live on Lindsay Street interviewing people before the OU Arkansas State game, so make sure you tune in to twitch.tv/ST0NERGAMER to see us live in the morning. We'll be walking up and down the street. Make sure if you're down there, come say hi and talk to us. We'll see you all down there. And have a good rest of your weekend. And remember, keep a stick on the ice.